There we go, two in a row. Started off with the Adventurers and Broken Land, following on there with Billy Joel, of course. Can't mistake that voice, can you? And that was famous last words. You're listening to The Breakfast Show. We are on 89.3 Call FM. Just to remind you what's coming up this morning. We've been chatting in the last hour this morning with Conrado Plochet, and he's got some good advice coming up. It is on, it's a webinar, and it's consulting for teens, and it's all about the things you need to know to, well, basically get started in life looking at this. Some great topics. So we're talking to Conrado, that's from Team Advisors. So that's in the last hour, but it is Thursday, and the time right now is 24 and a half minutes after the hour of 8 o'clock. Time to link up with Dr. Computer, Alex Newman. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Jerry. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Rather a strange subject this morning, vitamins.
No, that's the Electronics Entertainment Exposition, or E3 for short.
It's not a vitamin?
No, it's not.
Oh, I won't buy any then.
Okay.
Because we got one of our advertisers, they sell vitamins.
Oh, that's awesome. And do
Yeah.
do they also sell vitamins?
Right. We'll be talking to Conrado Plochet in the last hour of this morning's program. I enjoyed our tech talk this morning about vitamin. You say tomato, I say tomato.
Let's call the whole thing off.
Right then, that's it.
Yeah, no, really, the E3 is an expo that I haven't been able to attend physically yet. It's one of those bucket list items, just like some other expos around the world in different places. And the E3 is a very special one of them. It's called Electronic Entertainment Expo, and it's the trade event for the video game industry. It started out as an offshoot of CES. They started back in 1995, so it's been going for a lot of time now. It's only missed 1 year, last year, because of reasons,
Right.
and it was fully canceled because it was really hectic back then. June of last year, it was very difficult to get anybody to do anything, even online or otherwise.
Somebody
So
should come out with a game, though, shouldn't they? Kill the virus.
there are several games that kind of invoke the whole pandemic thing from different perspectives. There's one very famous one from a couple of years ago called The Last of Us, which combines the zombie genre with like an infection from a fungus, and it's really good in the storytelling sense.
Mm.
And that was also kind of a problem this year for new games coming out and so on, because you would think that, little shooters and simple games might not necessarily be difficult to make in our current health situation, public health situation. But a lot of the major games, the ones that the gaming studios and the brands and everything else put a lot of effort into, are like movies in and of themselves, with even major Hollywood actors playing
Mm.
different
Mm.
roles in different capacities. And you would think that they could probably do some of this work from home, but there are things like motion capture and
Mhm.
interaction and so on that are
Mhm.
very made very difficult, if not impossible, when you have lockdowns, when you have um, cities, for example, saying, you know what, we thought it was fine, but we're gonna have to lock down next week. And you've worked with radio and studios and music and so on, and you know that studio time is expensive and it
Mhm.
has to be booked in advance. So it was a very complicated year, I would say, for the gaming industry in general. So the fact that they actually got to do an E3 this year, even if it was virtual, I think is admirable in that sense. So we did get some reveals of new games, some new situations with games. Also, there's a worry about, not having an E3 last year, plus this one being virtual and a little bit smaller because of the lack of new titles and so on. It's been put into question if E3 is going to be continuing and being what it is right now. So I think they did a really good thing by announcing, like the very first thing they announced is that E3 2022 will be going on. It will be physical and it will be available for the industry to come to. Again, this is the first time that the general public has had a chance to participate in a lot of these events, which are designed for um, the media,
Hmm.
retailers, people who want to know what games to buy to stock the shelves for Christmas or the rest of the year. So it really changed the dynamic a lot, but it's going to go back to its roots next year. One of the main worries is that both Sony and Electronic Arts, one of the biggest players in this industry, pardon the pun, um, were a little bit like thinking of not necessarily being in this expo, and some other gaming manufacturers were also thinking of coming out with their wares when it's less crowded. Nintendo is one of them. They're probably going to come out with a Switch console later on. It was barely mentioned in this regard right now. I think one of the biggest things to focus on is that both Microsoft and Sony are making great strides in trying to become the next Netflix of gaming. And what
Hmm.
do we mean by that? Right now, a lot of the times, if you want to buy a game or whatever, you either go to a physical store, if you can,
Right. Hmm.
and get some media and put it in your console and then start playing. But one of the things that changed last year is that a lot of people, because they couldn't go to physical stores, they started taking into account that there are a lot of digital titles available that you
Hmm.
can get. And the digital market then started to become much more important. And one of the ways that this digital market evolved is that companies like Microsoft and Sony are allowing you, if you have a good enough network connection, to play the game hosted in their cloud servers, and your
Hmm.
console becomes just a terminal that you're playing the game on, even though the game is happening somewhere else,
Cool.
which brings you additional advantages. You can play it on your cell phone, on your tablet if it's supported, if it has enough horsepower to compress and decompress all that information so it fits in your internet connection. And that has made both Microsoft and Sony acquire a lot of gaming studios and then provide all of these games on their platform for a monthly fee. That's a little bit more expensive than, say, a Netflix, but it allows you to have access to a library of hundreds, if not thousands, of games, but for less than what you would pay for buying one game a month. So that's going to be an interesting way to see how the market evolves. I myself, I'm kind of a frugal gamer. I have the last generation console. I buy my games secondhand in like usually like physical copies. So I'm probably not the target that they're looking for, but most people out there are. They just buy the
Hmm. Yeah.
consoles. The consoles don't have like optical drives anymore. They just download the games off of the stores in the consoles. So that's going to be interesting to see how the market evolves. And speaking of evolution, did you hear also that Windows 11 is coming out? We can talk about that a
Yeah,
little later as
I
well.
saw something the other day. I just saw that starting, I think, was it next year, that Windows 10 will, or is it next year or a couple of years? Windows 10 will disappear. There's that, and of course, then there's the other thing which I just touched on recently when I saw a thing about our friends at Amazon are linking or going to be linking up what they call neighborhood people's devices so that it's sort of like a big network. And I was thinking this morning, actually, when I mentioned that this was one of the topics we might just look at briefly, because one of the things there is, well, if my next door neighbor has one
Hmm.
and Amazon automatically goes off and it's all sort of linked just for argument's sake. And the idea is that, well, if my service goes down, then my device will link to theirs. But how do you do that if the person next door hasn't given you access to their network, their Wi-Fi?
They gave the Alexa device access to the Wi-Fi. So the
So
device
they're
from
doing so
Amazon,
they're doing it without your consent.
not yet.
No, but what I'm saying is, then how do they? If my next door neighbor is what's the name
Hmm.
is linking up to my basically my network, my Wi-Fi, without me allowing it to sign into my network, my next door neighbor lad, then that is against my wishes. That is certainly I don't
Then you
want
need
people.
exactly. Then you
I don't
need
want
to make
people
sure.
using my Wi-Fi.
Exactly. So that's why you need to make sure that it's opted out of. It's supposed to be opt out. It's supposed to be opt in. It's not supposed to be automatic. But if you do opt in, it will reserve up to a small percentage of your bandwidth to help out other devices on their networks if their networks go down.
And
Uh,
how much are they going to pay us for this?
it- you're not going to pay anything to
No,
anybody.
how much are they going to pay me to use part of my bandwidth?
They're going to pay you by letting you use your neighbor's bandwidth if your internet goes down.
I don't want to use that bandwidth. I don't want to, I
Then
mean,
you
but this,
then you shouldn't opt in to
no, exactly. But why
exactly.
is it that you opt out because you don't want to do it rather than asking you to opt in? That would be the
They
proper way
they
to do
are
it.
asking you to opt in. It's not obligatory. They're not forcing you to do that. At least not yet. But you know how they sometimes change the terms and conditions and they just bury it in 3 or 4 or 20 pages of legalese so that you
Hmm.
just click accept out of, frustration. Just be careful what you're agreeing to and make sure to check your settings on your Amazon devices to make sure that you're not sharing your bandwidth if that is something that you do not wish to do. One other thing that some people do is that they set all of their Internet of Things devices onto the guest network
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
that it doesn't take up more bandwidth and it doesn't access any of your critical
Hmm.
devices that are on your network. So that's something else that you might want to think of.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's good. And just that's it. Well, just I want to get back to the game because I mean, you're a frugal gamer.
Hmm.
I am not a gamer.
Hmm.
It's just I don't know. I don't have that time to just sit around and play. What I did. This is my gaming expertise.
Hmm.
Is where you go into a little room and you have to find things that are hidden. That is about my limit.
I'm sure you've also played things like one of those little jewel games where you switch them around
Oh,
and make
oh
three
yeah,
in a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
row.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
there are things that just basically waste my time. That I don't have to follow them. That I don't have to be role playing or whatever. Because when I do see gaming, they all seem to be fighting games and things like that. Which
that is probably because it's the most competitive space right now, especially for advertising dollars. So you may see a lot of that and think, the industry is full of fighting games. But for example, I've played some historical games where you interact with historical figures and participate in historic events. And there are games that are not necessarily fighting games, but challenge games where, for example, there's one on the Nintendo Switch um, called Fitness Adventure, where you do different movements which are designed to let you exercise in different
hmm
ways
hmm
so that you can accomplish different challenges, burn calories, get better physical strength, and so on. And it's a very simple game, but it allows you to, interact in a way that's
okay.
healthy and beneficial. So there are
How's
a
that
lot of
going?
games. Sorry?
How's that going?
I'm on level 1.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I
I
I
mean,
need to go more often though.
the only thing I would like, I must admit, is the Formula One simulator. That would be my my game. I think.
I think there are several games that you can look into, not only on the computer. I mean, you do have 3 screens, so the thing is they're a little bit high though. They
Yeah.
would probably be better at eye level. But with
So
three
should I
screens,
should I drive a bus? You think?
or maybe one of those 747 airliners, because I think the windows on those are a little
Oh yeah.
higher though.
But
But yeah,
that's the thing, is it? Those simulators are really quite something. those aircraft simulators. That you, in actual fact, if you want to go from New York to California, you literally have to spend the time that it would take to get from New York to California. So you could have a little nap, couldn't you? And you could have you could have your peanuts and your glass of wine or something while you travel.
Or the lukewarm can of soda with two pieces of ice that are just melting there, not making much of a difference except making it watered down at the top. But yeah, yeah. Or you can bang your knee against the table and, recreate the entire experience. But yeah, there's a lot of that, and I remember my first flight simulator was on a what you would call a Sinclair ZX81
Oh, right. Yes.
with a single kilobyte of RAM, which I had to buy a 16 kilobyte expansion for so it could run the flight simulator, which was in black and white and had no sound, and the image was 1 frame per second. It was like playing a flight simulator slideshow, you know.
And was it? Didn't we think that was great though?
Oh yeah, I mean the
Yeah.
graphics were awesome. The horizon looks like somebody drew a Sharpie on the screen. It's yeah, it was great, and it's evolved a lot since then. But I do miss my ZX81.
Well, I enjoyed. I miss tennis. You know, where you have to go up and down and knock the ball backwards and forwards. That was
Yep.
a good.
I
Mhm.
have I have among some things that I have to fix because it's over 40 years old that I have to fix. It's a Coleco Telstar that had three games: tennis, hockey, and something else, or
Yeah.
volleyball, I think it was called. And it was like that, just black and white, two bars going up and down, a little square puck going from one side to the screen
Hmm.
to the other, and so on. And it was the first video game I played was actually Pong. It was on a arcade machine that you would sit down like a coffee table in the Miami airport in 1978. That
Oh,
was
right.
the
Yeah,
first
yeah. Uh-huh.
video game I ever played, and I've loved video games since. I'm not a gamer. I'm nothing even close to a gamer. There are several gamers here in Panama. If you like gaming content and you want to listen to gaming content, and this is mostly for the audience, there's a guy called Carcamo, and he has a channel on YouTube called Carcamo Gaming. I'll give you the details later, Jerry, so you can put it on the website. And he does content in Spanish and English, and he talks about all sorts of games, not only like the games that we have right now, but he also does a lot of retro gaming, like on the Atari and the
All right.
Coleco and the Nintendo, the original one at least. I've actually had the pleasure of going head to head with him playing old Nintendo games on my TV show, which is tonight at 7 on RPC. So if you like technology, we're going to talk a lot about retro tech and all sorts of tech news as well. So thanks for that.
And you can see him. So
Yeah,
if you're much better off watching him on radio.
yes, I have a face for radio. I've always been told that.
Now tell me, Windows 11. That sort of did that sort of come out of the blue, or did we? Is this been something that's been bubbling under for some time?
Well, it's been on people's radars for a while, and this latest leak sounds like, an iPhone 4 walks into a bar and I don't remember the rest. It sounds like one of those purposeful leaks that work as kind of a trial balloon so they can stave off any
Mhm.
comments that reviewers make on the official event, which is going to be a couple of weeks from now, or a couple of days from now, if I recall correctly. So that's going to be interesting. They're going to be coming out with Windows 11. I've seen the aesthetic. I I've seen some reviews online. It looks a little bit more refined. We'll have to wait and see how good it is regarding things like driver support. That's always a concern.
Mhm. Mhm.
From what I've heard so far, if your machine runs fine with Windows 10, it'll run a little bit better with Windows 11. It's been streamlined. It's been made more efficient. Even though there's still, sorry, if you run things in a certain way, you can even look for old programs from back in
Mhm.
Windows 95 still lurking around the code in Windows 11. But it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to go about the licensing and so on. If you have a Windows 10 license, will that
I was
carry
going to
over to
ask you that.
Windows
Yeah.
11?
Hmm.
I haven't heard anything official yet. We'll have to wait and see. I hope it's a rolling upgrade in the sense that if you've already got Windows 10, you'll just get Windows 11. And if not,
Hmm.
you'll get it with a new device if you get a new device or whatever. So far, the installs that I've seen work with a Windows 10 key. So if you've purchased a Windows 10 key, it should work to
Hmm.
activate this Windows 11. Of course, I would say don't activate it if you're running it as a test or whatever,
Hmm.
because those keys usually, after a certain number of activations, Microsoft is going to ask you to call them on the phone and explain why you're installing it so many times if you only bought one license. So you
Hmm.
need to be careful about that.
Okay. And so, I mean, when I look for these sort of, I guess, milestone upgrades, which this one would be, I look to see, to see if they're going to improve my interface, the look of my computer, and of course, that things work a little bit speedy.
Yeah, and that's basically what I've seen so far from reviews. I haven't seen anything
Mm.
like new or any new like major features that you didn't have before. It does look like a more simplified, more elegant interface, and things to
Mm.
seem to be a little bit snappier, a little bit speedier. So that's it. It's more of a Windows 10.5,
Mm.
at least from what I've seen so far. But still, it's kind of a wait and see. I'm going to try it out on a virtual machine later on the weekend and give you my impressions maybe later next week.
Okay, and when do we think this will be rolled out to the general public?
I haven't checked yet general public release. I haven't checked, but it does seem to come out in a couple of weeks. It's supposed to be close now. Yeah,
Okay.
on June 24. Microsoft is going to show all the details, including things we haven't seen in the leak, and it will give us an official date on the
Mm.
June 24 event from Microsoft. So it's supposed to be close. Maybe I'm thinking September, but
Okay.
probably could
Mhm.
come out even sooner, depending on what Microsoft wants to do.
And is it going to be one of these things where we need to wait to see what bugs they have to sort out? Or
My advice has always been wait. Wait
mm.
for the first patch Tuesday, next month
Mm.
or the month
Mm.
after that. I think Windows 10 for me, for example, wasn't really, what it is for me today until it's like third or fourth patch release.
Mm.
So I would say unless you like tinkering and like blue screens and like, the possibility of, things not working right, just stick with the latest build of Windows 10 and you'll be fine. But if you want to try out Windows 11, you can always use a virtual machine either with Windows's built-in Hyper-V if you have Windows
Mm.
10 Pro, or you can use what's the name of this thing? I even have it. I don't use it that often, but yeah, you can use any virtualization software, even the free ones that are there, and give it a shot.
Mm. Okay. Oh, interesting. Interesting. And anything else exciting in the future? Or
Well, you remember our friends at Honor Phones?
mm-hmm.
Well, they're the offshoot of Huawei that
Mm-hmm.
was sold so that they could continue doing business with the US, in this case
Right.
Google, and they just came out with the Honor 50, which would be like the, I would say, spiritual successor of the P40 from Huawei.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to have an even better camera, even better sensors, even better memory, storage, and CPU and everything. And it will have Google mobile services outside of China. So Panama was announced as one of the countries that is going to be having this phone available in the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to tell you all about it as soon as I get my hands on one. So if you guys at Honor are listening, I'd love to review one.
And I'm hungry. If anybody else is out there that's interested. And by the way, Ferrari, in case you're listening. If you'd like me to test your cars on the streets of Panama for things like suspension and potholes, do just let me know and see how long they survive.
I think you had them until you mentioned the potholes.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But I mean, I mean, joking apart, I mean, driving. I mean, I have an SUV, and the roads are absolutely atrocious.
Oh,
I mean, they're
definitely.
they're falling apart. I mean, surface is coming away, and when you come down if you come off here is Israel, and you drop down into if you're coming from the multi plaza direction, and you drop down the ramp into Avenida Balboa in front of Multicentro, that's all gone. The surface where it joins the bridge, it's just deteriorating. There's patches missing on Avenida Balboa of the surface, so you've got about a 2 inch sort of bump as you go down and up the other side. I mean, it's pretty. The guy, the minister, obviously doesn't have a car, does he? Really?
He
You know,
drives the
and
car that we pay for all the repairs, so
oh, I guess you don't feel the bumps. I mean,
they
so
probably
perhaps.
repair it every day so he doesn't feel the bumps, or he travels in a helicopter or something.
Yeah, or perhaps we'll even get a compensation for all our suspension repairs. So anyway, I digress completely, as I do sometimes. Um, E3. So that was so next year then. So what you're saying earlier on, the public this year, because it's all been sort of virtual, have basically had access to it.
Yeah, they
Um,
tried giving access to the public a couple of years ago, and
hmm,
it was kind of chaotic. So they
okay.
reduced the access like only for a couple of days, and they gave access to retailers and other
Hmm,
industry insiders 3 hours early so they could get some of their business done. I mean, they are trying to get participation from the public, but I think just like CES, it's a show for the industry and should
sure.
remain as such
Hmm.
in the sense that physical access should be for members of the industry. If it can be made public in any way possible, at least the broadcasts and the streaming and everything else, I'm all for it because uh, the more the public has access to the information,
Hmm.
the more they can do something with it. But the physical aspect of it, even after getting rid of all even after we've achieved collective immunity and so on, I think it still should at least make it um, uh, easy for the industry to attend, not necessarily the public. Or, if you have public events,
Hmm.
have them on another side venue or whatever, so it doesn't interrupt the flow of the whole industry thing going on.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Or, now that we're sort of doing hybrid stuff, they could have the physical one for the industry and a virtual one for everybody else.
Yeah, and I think that's probably going to be the way that they're going to do
Hmm.
CES next year. At least this year it was fully virtual, but I think next year it's probably going to be like in previous occasions where you have some specific media days where the brands have the chance to do their live stream with their newest wares, and then you have four
Hmm.
days where you have like the main floor and people can just the industry people can interact with the industry itself and make everything happen.
All right, perfect. Well, Dr. Computer, Alex Newman, as always, thank you so very much for being with us on this morning's breakfast show. Don't forget, you can catch Alex tonight, facially,
Hmm.
on the TV. Remind everybody again, Alex.
That's 7 p.m. on RPC or on the Medcom Go app. You can look for Medcom Tecnología on Google and it'll pop right up.
All right, perfect. Alex, as always, thank you so very much. Dr.
Thank you.
Computer, Alex Newman with us here on this morning's breakfast show.